Hello, World Wide Web. Jim Tech Lovin down in the dungeon in the basement. You can hear the furnace in the background going. A few things to talk about today. Had to check out. One of them is liquid cooled versus air coolers, high end air coolers, rather than just regular air coolers. Hang on, I have to get one more. You guys listen to the furnace. Okay. And here is the last one. See if I can squeeze through here. Put that right there. That's a high-end air cooler. So we've got, the old traditional Noctua, which is ugly as sin. But on your left is the Noctua NH-D15S Chrome Max Black. It is a beautiful cooler. Dual fans. On the right, we have the NHU9S from Noctua. Socket 11, the 1150 sockets, AM4 2011-3 2011 is what. So it's still got those brown fans, but it's a smaller cooler than what you're used to in Noctua, the big giant coolers. And then we have the Frost Spirit from Thermalright. They have the Peerless Assassin and the Frost Spirit seems to be really hard to get, but it's very similar to the Peerless Assassin. But inexpensive cooler and an absolutely fantastic cooler. Dual fans, same thing. Looks better than Noctua's and really does rival Noctua in its performance. And below we have your general AIO. In this case it's a SAMA, but AIO's, yeah, there's some really good ones. But what I don't like about liquid coolers is liquid. And I never know when that pump is going to fail, when something's going to fail. My computer might be on, I might be away from the house. And if that fails, can that small heatsink on top of the CPU keep it from shutting down? At least hopefully it shuts down and doesn't overheat and fry something. Whereas the air coolers, they're pretty much infallible. They don't have any liquid. There's not much that can go wrong other than your fans can stop. And if they did stop, these higher end coolers, the fin array and the heat sink on top of the CPU is so large that I think you'd still be able to dissipate the heat without any fans. That's my opinion on those. I mean, I like liquid cooling because you can get they look better. You can get your hands down in there. In case, because with most 98% of cases, if you put the motherboard in and then and you're using a tower cooler and your tower cooler is installed, because that's the way I do it. My tower cooler is on the motherboard before I put it in the case. It gives me something to grab. But you cannot, it's almost impossible to get your 8-pin on if you're using a large tower cooler. Except in the case of another case I have behind me that I'm going to show you after. But anyway, so obviously liquid coolers are a lot easier to get the 8-pin on. It doesn't matter whether you can do them afterwards. The 8-pin's easy to get on, and there's lots of room. And yeah, do they look better? Yeah, absolutely, they look better. There's more. You can see more of the motherboard. They don't cover up one of your RGB sticks. But anyway, that's that. Well, moving on. That's my opinion on air versus liquid. I like them both, but yeah, I kind of prefer air. And I just think they rival, especially the high-end coolers, the Frost Spirit, the Noctua, the D15, the Frost Spirit, the Peerless Assassin. They rival any AIO out there for cooling, without a doubt. And that's on Intel, on AMD. AMD's not a difficult CPU to cool. Intel, very difficult CPU to cool. Especially, you know, the 13th gen, 14th gens. I haven't used 14th, but I've used 12th, I've used 13th, 11th, 10th. You know, it didn't start getting bad until like 12th gen, when it came to their heat issues. So yeah, and but an air cooler will cool them. So let's move on here to something a little bit different. And I'm just going to swing you over this way and tilt you down a little bit. Right there. So I just found this in my pile of stuff. Because that's what it is, a pile of stuff. And, well, I'll leave this here because I don't need to move it right away. So this is a, and I'll move you over a little bit here. Try not to knock that off of there. Yeah, it's gotten a little crowded down here in the basement. What started out as just something small has turned into something extremely large. So this is a, as you can see, it's a triple channel memory. We've got memory here at the back. And we've got memory here. So it's a server board. One CPU handles one bank of memory. Another CPU handles the second bank of memory. Chipset here, I believe. And it's got a fan on it because it gets pretty hot. I have an SSD attached to it because I just wanted to see, hey, does this board actually run? It was just in my pile of stuff. I don't even know where I got it from. So it's dual Xeons, 5680s here and here, two 5680s. So it's they're both six core, 12 thread CPUs. So we're what, 12 cores, 24 threads? So let's fire it up and we'll see what we get here. I'm just going to move a couple of things because otherwise we won't see our screens. So I'll move some of my coolers. Sorry if I'm getting in the way, but whoa! It is what it is. Yeah, that at least I didn't knock a whole bunch of stuff around. There we go. So yeah, let's fire this thing up. So I wish I had a motherboard here. Another one, I mean. I do have one here. So this is the way I always start building, is on the bench whenever I'm building anything. I'm just going to put this one, another one over here. Let's slap this on here. I just want to show people something, especially, yeah, the server board is different, so I can't show you on that one, but I can show you on this one. Guess I better pick it up because we're too far away. So, if you're building on the bench, there's always, I got to get this in the picture. Whoops. Let's just let that SSD hang down there. So, try and get a good shot of this. Might need a little better light. Let's go this way. Hard to see, but okay, so if you're building on a bench, you're not going to really have anything connected. So you're just going to have to short some pins to start it. And it's always, so it's this over here on the, let me just grab something else that I can point with here. And of course I can't find what I'm looking for right now. And that's pretty typical. It's hard to find anything in here anymore. So you got 5 pins on the bottom and 4 pins on the top. Your power is always the 2 beside the empty one. There's nothing on this side. Whoops. There's nothing on this side right here. So this pin is empty. So it's always the next 2 pins are your power. And usually right below that or one over is your reset. So these 2 pins right here are the ones that you would short, the first 2. It's the same on every motherboard except server boards, but it's the same on every single one. Because some of them won't give you that information. Some of them it's not written on the board, but it's always the same. So that's where you'd short your pins. I always start my builds on the bench, and I tune them on the bench, and then I move them into the case. Sorry, I'm just looking for something that I constantly lose all the time. I might as well just throw it out because I can never find it. Anyway. Here it is. It's just a big plastic thing. So, you know, with today's Behemoth graphics cards, you can't really reach down with your hands to pop the clip. And I use this to pop the clip. There is a last board I built, though, had a button up at the top to pop the clip, which was pretty damn nice to have that. So anyway, let's see if this thing starts. I think we're powered on. And yeah, I use a 1,000-watt supply on the bench up there just for my boards when I'm building. So this one actually, it's marked power switch, so it's right here. Now, the funny thing about these boards is that they take forever to boot. So you sit here for a while, waiting patiently, and eventually you'll hear a beep. So I pulled it out. I fired it up. I really didn't know. I figured, oh, it's not. It turns on, but it doesn't. It doesn't post. That was the first impression I got. So I was standing around, I was doing something else. I just left it on, and I turned around, and I hear beep, and I went, "What's that from?" I said, "Did this thing just post?" And I look, and I don't see anything on the screen. So I don't know whether it posted or not. And as you can see, we're still kind of waiting. Oh, there's the furnace kicking on. Ah, there's the beep. And turn you around here. And there it is. I've got dual hooked up, but there it is. It just posted. So it's running Windows 10 Professional. Get a little closer. There we go. And I'm going to push it down a bit. Don't need it all the way up. Yes. So there you go. It's running Windows 10 Professional. Pretty decently, actually. See if we can, whoops. Just bring up a couple of things. HW info. I don't know why that's there. And I'm going to bring up Cinebench also. Obviously it didn't activate Windows. I do like that about Microsoft, that you can run their software now without activating. And we'll just run an all-core load. Don't know how well you can see that, but I'll move you up here so we can get a better, there we go. So here's our first CPU, 3467 megahertz, or 3.4, 3.5 gigahertz. And here's our second CPU, so 5680, Xeon 5680. So yeah, 3.45 gigahertz is what it runs at. And performance-wise, it's just a little bit behind a Ryzen 7 1700, which is an 8-core, 16-thread processor. So it's fun to play with because it's triple channel, 1333 the memory. I've got 48 gig in there. Just a GTX 760. And there it is running Cinebench. Fun to play around with. But my God, 2 CPUs and it falls behind. Oh, I'm sorry, there's 6-core CPU. Yeah, 6-core CPUs. So 6 cores, 12 threads per CPU, not 8. But a single 8-core, 16-thread, 1700X beats it by a little bit. Not by much, but by a little bit. Yeah, so it's a 6-core, 12-thread. We'll just let it finish this one Cinebench run here. And by the way, this channel receives, hopefully I'm able to talk over the furnace here. This channel receives no funding from any of, so anything I talk about, I'm completely non-partisan. I don't receive any free product. I wish I did. And I buy everything. Of course, I build with it and sell it afterwards, but I get to test everything, which is nice. 12th gen, 11th gen, 10th gen, even older 9th and 8th gens, 13th gen, Ryzen's all the way up to the, I haven't tried the, oh yes, I've built a couple of 7800X3Ds, which is, I'm building a 5800X3D coming up, just waiting for the parts to come in. Using mostly 30 series graphics cards that I have, and I have quite a few in inventory. I have used a couple of 4060s. What a terrible card that is. Sorry, NVIDIA, but you shouldn't even put that out. I mean, a 2080 Ti kicks its butt, so 4060 is just a terrible card. Even for the, what, 300 Canadian dollars, because we're in Canada, those 300 Canadian dollars is, let me see, 100 too much. Because really the 4060 should just be a budget card. Like, and it's supposed to be a budget 46, a budget card. It's not a budget card at plus $300. Not even close. Or is it plus 400? I don't know. Can't remember. But I used one and I said, yeah, I'm not buying that again. I was pretty disappointed in its performance. So don't buy one. If you're going to buy a graphics card, go with a used, something on the used market in the 30 series. I wouldn't go 3060. 3060s are good budget cards. They are good budget cards. But in that case, maybe 6600 XT or something along those lines for a budget card. Otherwise, the 3070 Ti and up, great cards. And I'm going to show you some other stuff. So I'll leave this alone. That's done. I'm going to turn you around here. Put you back on the chair. Lift you up. I do all of this with my iPad. It works. Let's go over here. Yes. You see all that? Yeah, pretty much. So this is a 5800X. There you see my little Tech Lovin' down at on the graphics card there. It's an RTX 3080 in there. 32 gig of RAM. And the motherboard is... It's MPG B550 Gaming Plus MSI. It's pretty... I was pretty impressed with the motherboard. It was the only one I had at the time, so I used it. But it's a good system. But the most impressive thing, and I'll tell you a little bit of story about this system. The power supply I had in it, I had a 1000-watt power supply. So I built it on the bench, and it was fine on the bench. I was using that 1000-watt power supply because I like to use the power supplies I'm putting in. I was using that 1000-watt power supply, but I only had the 24-pin and the 8-pin, right? And then a CPU cooler. That was it. That's all I had attached to it. So transferred everything into the case, and it worked fine for a short period of time until it shut down. I turned around and it shut down. I went, why did that shut down? Go to power it back on, it won't power back on. Just getting a flicker of light. So I had to swap out the power supply. So as soon as I added the RGB and the fans, even though it tested fine on the tester afterwards, the amount of load that was put on once I added everything was too much for that power supply, and it was just shutting itself down. It could have been because of heat issues. I'm not sure, but I'm going to talk about this case. It's a very good case for allowing the power supply to breathe, and where it's drawing air from, it's drawing air from the backside, with holes in the backside where the power supply fan is. So anyway, yeah, I had to switch out the power supply. So I did that, and then it ran fine, ran great for a while. And then once again, it shut down on me after I was running a stress test. I thought, well, maybe the graphics card is failed. So I swap out the graphics card, and same thing. Okay. God, I hope my graphics card, but obviously it wasn't the graphics card. I tried it in another PC and it was fine. I take out one of the memory sticks, same thing. Finally, I take it off the bench because I can't get behind it when it's on the bench, and I put it down on the floor, and I remove the cooler, and I wipe off the cooler, I fire it back up. I just want to see if there's any heat from the CPU, because I said, oh, maybe the CPU is dead. And there's nothing from the CPU. So I'm almost figuring, oh, damn, CPU has become a potato. Don't know. So I turn it around, I take off the back panel, and I look down at the power supply, and here my CPU plug has come out about 3 or 4 millimeters. I went, you got to be kidding me. After I'd already taken all this stuff off, because it was up on the bench, I didn't take the other side panel off. It's a heavy system, so I never noticed that. Well, obviously, I wouldn't have noticed that the CPU plug was slightly out. So I push it back in. And I go, well, I hope this is it. I put it all back together. Bang, fires right up. What I had on the motherboard was just the green CPU light. So that's why I figured it was the CPU, because I had the CPU light on. And it was the CPU. It wasn't getting powered. If you don't have any power going to your CPU, you're not going to post. So, this thing's still running behind me here. So I need to tell you about this case. So this is a DIYPC case. I call it a wide body. I can't remember exactly. I'm going to go and look and see what the name is. It is... It is a DIYPC ARGB. What was the numbers? Q10. Q10. DIYPC ARGB Q10 case. Oh, get in here. So I bought this case because it was on sale Black Friday, New Egg Black Friday. And it was a good deal. Like, it was a really good deal. It was like $70, I think, you know, plus taxes, but $70. So it's a wide body because it looks like it's similar to the Height Y60, which I have down here on the floor right there. That's the Height case. And they're like, I think I paid $300 for that case. It was pretty expensive at the time anyway. And yeah, nice case, the Height. So this one's as wide as that, but I have never built, whoever designed this case did an absolute, they've obviously built computers themselves or something. I don't know, but they did a fabulous job on this thing. Every cutout is in exactly the right place. Where you needed a cutout to bring cables to the front, you had one. All kinds of tie downs on the back for all your mess of wires, because that's what you end up with down there. So you got all kinds of tie downs, all kinds of room at the back. Like I said, excellent cutouts. There's so many positive things about this case. Like the Height has the power button down at the bottom. I hate it. And that's where your USB is. Like, I'm going to break that someday. And you are. You're going to kick it off. Whereas this one, they're all up at the top. And I'm going to show you that right now. So they are all, whoops. Where are we? There we are. They're all up here. There's no USB-C in the top panel. I'm going to turn on a light here a little bit. But there is USB 3.0 and 2.0. Like, you notice a huge difference. Put you back up there. There we go. So there's our panel there. And then you've got your mic and speaker. Also, you've got a glass, tempered glass side panel. The plastic is still on, so it looks a little crappy. And you have tempered glass in the front. RGB kind of stripped down the side here at the front. A little bit different. You don't see that a lot. Same setup as the Height, where you can put an AIO on the side or fans, as in this case is the way I have this one set up. The cooling is actually quite excellent. I've added the 2 fans on the bottom, and there is a place for fans on the bottom. So I've got intakes on the bottom. These ones on the side are intakes. This is the Noctua NHD 15 Chrome Max Black. I just don't have the second fan on. I'm only using 1 fan. This CPU is running at 4.5 gigahertz all-core. and it runs great on all-core, and I see my RGB isn't working, which is typical. Corsair iQ software sucks. Well, all the RGB software out there sucks. There we go. Yeah, whenever I go to hardware lighting, it shuts off. I don't know what that's about. I did have rain in here, but it won't change. It's absolutely ridiculous. Yeah, it's just stupid. Just terrible, terrible, terrible software. Can't stand it. What I did was I said, well, I'm going to try something different. So I installed Signal RGB. I just completely pooched everything. I had it set as rain. I liked rain. It was quite nice on the RAM, and yep, installed Signal RGB, and it pooched literally just pooched everything. It's like, you gotta be kidding me. Thanks, Signal. Good job. So anyway, back to the case. There. So your regular I/O for the motherboard and stuff like that. And on the other side, there are cutouts for these side fans. Just there was so much room in this case to build with. And and it's really hard to see, but you see how much room there is above this giant cooler, the Noctua cooler? Well, I didn't put the 8-pin on when I put the motherboard in, because there was like 2 inches of room above the cooler. I have never seen this with any case. So the motherboard sits down a little bit. It's actually away from the top. And what does that leave room for? It also leaves room for an AIO at the top, because some of them you just don't have enough room where it's running into the RAM. This one, no issues whatsoever with, if you wanted to put an AIO at the top, you'd have no issues whatsoever. So from that stand, just like I say, somebody's had their hands in other case. This is the only case I've ever seen like that. So it's a fantastic case, and I'm going to buy more of them. I think they're a little bit over $100 Canadian here, which is still a great deal. This one's black, but I think they're available in white and red. Yeah, so great job, DIYPC. Pretty impressive stuff, that's for sure. I mean, it's a nice case, really nice case. And if I could get my Corsair Vengeance RAM RGB to work correctly, that would be nice. I guess I'm gonna look for some other software. Another thing about Signal, they want me to pay for it. I'm not paying for junk. For junk that pooches everything? Like, really? Are you kidding me? Like, I was very, very upset that it pooched my stuff. You know, I've never played with it in the first place. Yeah, I should have never played with it in the first place, but I did. And tried something different. I said, see if I could, because MSI Center, well, it wasn't controlling the RAM, but iQ is not much better. MSI Center is controlling the motherboard, and it's pretty crappy too. So they're all pretty crappy. I wish they'd standardize a lot of this stuff. It's actually quite frustrating. RGB, it takes me, I could complete a build in half the time if I didn't have to screw around with a bunch of wires and RGB. Just frustrating stuff, man, that's for sure. I want to do some builds with that somebody says, oh, you know what, I don't want any RGB. That would be great. That would be wonderful. Now I'll turn you back around this way. Get you a little closer. So that was, yeah. That was about all I wanted to talk about. Was those few things. And I love this Xeon board. It's pretty cool that it actually runs. That's the best part about it, is that it runs. What am I going to use it for? Nothing. But it runs. So, I like some of the older enthusiast stuff. It's fun to have. I had an X79, I had an X99 motherboard. I ended up selling those, but I miss them now. So, and the X79 I think was an EVGA board for the win. Yeah, it's supposed to be coming back because somebody who I sold it to somebody, they sold it to somebody else, and it's coming back because he wants to put it in a case, and he didn't have a cooler for it, and I have them here, and he contacted a buddy of mine who asked him to build it, and he said, well, I don't have the parts for that, so he transferred him on to me. I haven't heard from him yet, but I'm supposed to do that build for him. He has his case, he has his power supply, so all I have to do is add the cooler and do the build. And I know the motherboard because, yeah, I built it on the bench. So, and that's the way I sold it. It was just a bare bones system. So I got to use it, and then, so I didn't make any money on it, never do. Don't make any money on any of these systems. I just use them for a while and tune them. I enjoy tuning them, so I tune the RAM manually. I use XMP, but then I do manual tuning on the RAM, and RAM takes a long time to tune because of the testing that's involved. You can't have any errors. And then usually I don't overclock everything. I don't overclock the X3D chips. Intel, it's getting to the point where they have those things basically maxed out just to keep up with AMD. So there's not a lot of room there because you're going to run into the heat wall with those. And AMD seems to, unless you get a golden chip, which few of us do, they send those to all the YouTubers that review them, all the reviewers. That's where those the bin chips go. A lot of the bin chips. If you're lucky, you're going to get some really good silicon or silicon or whatever they call it, and you'll be golden, and it'll overclock beyond its turbo. But most of them will all core just below their turbo, like 100 megahertz below their turbo. That's my experience with AMD. And the X3Ds, yeah, no, you don't. You can tune those, but you don't overclock them. They're just not going to be 100% stable, and the performance is fantastic anyway in gaming. So Intel's never going to be able to. Intel needs a new architecture. They really do. And their idea is, you know what, we'll keep up with AMD's core count by just having these E-cores. What a great idea. And they call them cores. Well, no, they're not. You know, you can't call it a 16 core or a 12 core when it's got 8 cores and 4 E-cores. That's not a 12 core, it's an 8 core with E-cores. They're not the same. Whereas AMD has 16 cores, 32 threads, 12 cores, 24 threads, 8 cores, 16 threads, 6 cores, 12 threads. No, they don't have E-cores. So Intel Intel couldn't put out a 16 core 32 thread. like true 16 P-core 32 thread, because the things would blow up. They couldn't control the heat, and they still can't. That's the biggest problem with them. So their architecture needs a rework, obviously. And the way they kept up with AMD is by going with these efficiency cores. Gamers don't want efficiency cores. Most of the gamers turn the efficiency cores off and just run with the P cores, where they can get a little more performance out of the P cores. So, have I had Intels that I could clock really high? Yeah, absolutely. There was a few, but they were older gens where you didn't have the heat, or you didn't have the heat issues that the 12th and the 13th and the 14th gen have. So they need a new process node. They need a new architecture, something that's going to work. And it is an E-course. That ain't it. They need to come up with something different in order to keep up with AMD. I've been an AMD fan for a long time, only because they were cheaper back when I was young. I couldn't afford Intel. It was too expensive. The motherboards were expensive. The CPUs were expensive. So I bought AMD because they were cheaper. So I'm used to AMD. I build them both. But watching Intel sit on their hands while AMD blew past them with AM4 looks so good on Intel. And now Intel's the one playing catch up. And it looks good on them. But it's nice to have the competition now that AMD has finally made Intel get off their hands, because they weren't putting out, from one generation to the other. It wasn't the greatest. We weren't moving up in performance like we should have been. Instead, they were raking in the profits. So, certainly looks good on them. And this 2 generations per motherboard, yeah, that doesn't work for me. That's what I like about AM4. You can go all the way from, a 1600 or a 2600 all the way up to a 5950. So you can go from 6 cores to 16 on the same platform. Most of the same platform. You need a little bit of a better motherboard to do that, but you can do it on the same platform. So, isn't that great for gamers? Isn't that great for everybody? Enthusiasts, whatever. Great. I love it. So kudos to AMD. It's great to see you guys doing something. And the AM5 platform is going to be a good platform. Just like AM4, it needs to grow. And just like DDR5. DDR5 is starting to get better, but it was a little bit of a nightmare to begin with. And still is a little bit, but it'll get better as time goes on. So you're almost at the point where, yeah, you can build a DDR5 system. But I don't think it's there yet to run really fast memory. But it will get there. Anyway, that's it. That's all I got for today on the World Wide Web. Does anybody call it that anymore? I don't think so. But anyway, my name is Jim. You're watching Tech 11. Like and subscribe if you can. It's winter, so I'll try and put out more videos. I have no time in the summer because my job takes up all my time. But please like and subscribe. I need to get up to more subscribers if I can, and I'll try to put out decent content, and eventually maybe I'll move on from Mr. iPad and move to something a little better. Thanks a lot. Have a great day, and we'll talk at you later.